Chapter 12, Organizational Solutions to Fundraising with Rival Hero Stories. Story conflict. Advance the donor's hero story. In major gifts fundraising, this works. It works for the donor is the hero. It works for the fundraiser is the guiding sage. But a nonprofit is not just a fundraising organization. It's also an operational organization. It might be a hospital, a university, or a museum. It might deliver healthcare, research, or education. For this operations side, the donor hero story does not work. In the donor hero story, charity administrators are minions. They merely scamper about doing the heroic donor's bidding. Whatever happens results from the donor's decisions, not the administrator's. The administrator's role is only to dutifully obey donor orders. Embracing the donor hero story inspires fundraising, but it doesn't inspire charity insiders. What works for this group is the administrator hero story. The employees heroically battle against a villain. They fight disease, ignorance, or suffering. They face obstacles, conquer enemies, and gain victories. This hero story is powerful. It's what attracted them to the job in the first place. It provides significance in their daily work. It keeps them from leaving to make more money elsewhere. It works. This story conflict is simple. The most compelling hero story is our own. Dr. Olivia Ethmau writes, quote, "We are the heroes of our own story. That much is undeniable. We can be skeptical about assigning the label of hero or heroine to ourselves. Most of us are. We may even have a deep resistance to it. But heroism is in our blood." Close quote. Each story is important for each group, but the stories conflict. Culture conflict. The conflict goes beyond stories. Effective fundraising culture isn't just different from the rest of the nonprofit. In many ways, it's the opposite. Penelope Burk writes, quote, "The nonprofit sector is exactly what its name suggests, a sector constituted to not make a profit. But inside hundreds of thousands of organizations that have been granted this status are bustling profit centers called development or fundraising departments. They are charged with the opposite responsibility, to make as much profit as possible." Close quote. Alan Clayton explains, quote, "The fundraiser has to be a truly awesome person, because what in effect they are doing is running a private sector culture business inside an academic, medical, or public sector culture organization. This culture difference goes beyond profit. The operations side is about analytical complexity, shared governance, and risk management. A slow, careful, bureaucratic culture works for operations, but it is death for fundraising. Fundraising is about dreams and possibilities. It's about individual impact and compelling story. Fundraising is an ambitious, achiever, emotion-centered operation, but it functions inside of a risk-averse, planner, analytics-centered entity. The conflict is real. So, how can we resolve it? Power structures. One approach to conflict is the zero-sum game. Whatever one side wins, the other side loses. The question is simple: who's in charge? Different structures give donors different levels of control. One, donor has complete control of organization. Example, donor creates a private family foundation. 2, donor has limited control of organization. Example, donor is a board trustee. 3, donor has complete control of his gift. Example, Nonprofit accepts a broad range of donor-created gift restrictions. 4. Donor has limited control of his gift. Example, nonprofit allows only a few pre-approved gift restrictions. 5. Donor has no control of his gift other than not giving. Example, nonprofit accepts only unrestricted gifts. 6. Taxpayer. Example, government forces unrestricted contributions. Administrators prefer the scenarios with the higher numbers on this list. They want to make all decisions. Number 5. Donors are supposed to give and then go away. Even better is if government grants, number 6, remove the need for donors altogether. However, major donors prefer the other scenarios. They like control too. So, what's the right structure? Answer 1. The administrator wins. Many charities are wholly devoted to the administrator hero story. The donor hero story is banned. Commonly, these nonprofits focus on high-volume, small gifts. This works for 2 reasons. First, the administrator hero story can motivate giving. It can motivate small, pat-on-the-head gifts. These show approval for what those people are doing. They reflect feelings of, "Isn't that nice for you?" Second, this fundraising advances the administrator hero story. A mass appeal can tell the administrator hero story to thousands. It might produce few gifts, but it's emotionally satisfying for the nonprofit leaders. Alas, such nonprofits usually do poorly in major gifts. The resistance to donor control is too great. The idea of delivering value to donors is too foreign. Focusing on the donor's experience and the donor's impact just doesn't fit. So, the administrators win. They control the story. They control the organization. They just never get the resources to make much impact. Answer 2. The donor becomes the administrator. When does the administrator hero story work for donors? When the donor becomes an administrator. For the board trustee donor, the 2 hero stories merge. The donor becomes a leader. The nonprofit becomes his responsibility. Its success reflects his success. The nonprofit's impact becomes the donor's impact. The donor identifies with the organization. Board membership can help in other ways. It can build a community of major donors. This provides socially relevant examples of others giving. It provides a socially relevant audience for the donors giving. Membership signals resources and shared values. This supports future cooperative ventures among members. Such membership has real financial value. This power sharing with select donors can work, but it's limited. It works only for a few donors. What else works? Answer 3. 2 organizations. At first, the private family foundation seems entirely one-sided. The donor has all the power. He gets all of the honor. He's the only hero. But it's part of a larger ecosystem. The foundation makes grants to operating charities. This system allows both hero stories. For the operating charity, grants are all about the administrator hero story. The nonprofit delivers some heroic outcome. They find foundations wanting to fund that outcome. They analytically prove their efficiency. They beat out the competitors. They get the money, quote, because the organization deserves it, close quote. Grant seeking fits the administrator hero story. For the donor, grants are all about the donor's hero story. The donor gives to a donor-created, donor-controlled, donor-named permanent entity. It funds only donor-selected heroic goals. Nonprofit administrators are minions. They fight for the privilege of doing the donor's bidding. If the administrator doesn't like it, tough. They don't get the grant. This separation is powerful. It encourages both generosity and operational efficiency. It separates the gift-receiving and the operational entities. It allows both hero stories. Answer 4. The Federalist organization. Be together, not the same. The foundation grantee ecosystem works. But how does this help fundraising nonprofits? They must do both fundraising and operations. A related approach can work. Here, the solution is not external separation of organizations. Instead, it's internal separation of cultures. The answer is the Android slogan, be together, not the same. Internal separation can work. In government, this is federalism. Texas culture is not the same as California culture. Maine is not New York. But each can be part of one nation. The effective nonprofit needs both stories. It needs both cultures. But one side starts with all the power. Every nonprofit is run by insiders. Administrators have the authority. The donor's only power is negative. The donor can walk away. Preserving both cultures starts by protecting fundraising. It must be protected from slow, complex, bureaucratic culture. It must be protected from the administrator hero story. They don't know they don't know. The problem isn't just that administrators don't understand fundraising. The problem is they don't understand that they don't understand fundraising. What do fundraisers report as the biggest fundraising challenge? It is this, quote, "My colleagues, boss, others don't understand fundraising and they won't let me do my job," close quote. Alan Clayton calls this being, quote, "surrounded by aloof people. A, amateurs with a L, lot, O, of, O, opinions about F, fundraising," close quote. This can be worse for fundraisers in one-person shops. What is their most commonly reported work problem, aside from having too much work to do? It is this: lack of collegial atmosphere. This affects retention. Development directors at small versus large organizations were different. They were 2.5 times more likely to be planning to leave fundraising within 2 years. Let fundraisers run fundraising. Retention can be a problem, but not everyone leaves. So why do fundraisers stay? One study looked at this. It asked fundraisers with no intention to leave why they planned to stay. Of course, belief in the charity's mission was important. Aside from this, the most common reason was, quote, "being included as a respected participant in discussions and decision-making on issues affecting fundraising." Giving fundraisers the power to run fundraising works. Such fundraisers don't just stay, they also succeed. Development directors in high-performing organizations were different. They were nearly twice as likely to report having a lot of influence on financial goals. Protecting and respecting the fundraising culture within the organization is key. It affects performance. For example, one research study found, quote, 57% of development directors at high-performing organizations strongly agreed that their organizations valued them for their fund development skills, knowledge, and expertise, compared to 31% of other development directors. The appreciation of fundraising starts at the top. This study of nonprofits found that, quote, executives at high-performing organizations were twice as likely as their peers to say they love asking individuals for donations, close quote. Be together, not the same. Success requires bringing both groups together while protecting each. Jeff Brooks suggests this, quote, publicly define the two cultures. Make it an ongoing conversation. Just knowing that you think differently from someone else and that it's perfectly okay, that's a big step toward reconciliation. In the effective nonprofit, people from each side learn to appreciate the other's work. They learn to focus on common goals, common enemies, and mutual benefit. Start simple. For example, no money equals no mission. Getting money that advances some part of the mission is a good thing. Have a common goal. Getting more donor money requires delivering more value to donors. It requires a compelling donor experience. Delivering this takes everyone working together. Have a common enemy. Private foundations, funds, and trusts win the lion's share of major donations. They give donors control and benefits. Don't just fight over how much control donors will get. Focus on beating the competition. Focus on getting the donor-controlled money to come to your organization. Neither side may get everything it wants. Protecting these opposite, contradictory cultures isn't easy. It requires understanding and mutual respect. But making room for both cultures works. The effective nonprofit supports the mission and fundraising.